Hey there, deep divers, it's Julie B, and today I'm diving into episode 3 of The Institute, Graduation. The plot thickens in this episode as it becomes clear that the Institute harnesses the psychic powers of the children to bring down an airplane and assassinate a senator. Luke sees the dots during his test for the first time. Tim inadvertently puts a target on Annie's back, and the kids get to know the new recruit Avery, a much younger child with intense telepathic powers that they plan to utilize against the adults with the goal of escaping this place. So without further ado, let's get into it. One of this episode's biggest developments is Luke's test, in which he sees the dots for the first time, but he doesn't tell Dr. Hendricks as he's supposed to do. He's warned that if he looks away from the screen, Tony will slap him, and if he does it again, Tony will shock him with a cattle prod. So the abuse of these kids continues to become more disturbing. Luke is injected with more of the mysterious green chemicals, and the experience is so uncomfortable that he does try to look away from the screen, but Tony grabs his face and forces him to look as he gets a nosebleed. Contrary to their expectations, Luke sees the dots already on the first test. Red, blue, and green, the primary colors of light. Then he starts convulsing in what appears to be a seizure and passes out. Hendricks actually says, "Oopsie daisy," so cavalier about endangering this child's life. The people running this place are true sociopaths, impervious to guilt about their vile actions toward the kids. Luke begs to return to his room because he feels so sick, but Hendricks refuses to allow it. He shows Luke various papers with things drawn on the back, asking him to tell them what they are. Luke claims not to know what they are, but he's probably hiding that he has TP already, telepathy. So he throws out random guesses and begs to return to his room again. Then Tony actually does shock him with the cattle prod. When Tony brings him back to his room, Luke can barely stand up, his nose is still bleeding, and he just sobs on the floor. He's been so tough up to this point, but this shows just how brutal the tests are. They're pushing him to his breaking point. Later, the kids get to know the new recruit Avery, who is willing to help them however he can so they can get home. Shaw says his TP is much better than hers, and he's able to talk to her like a voice in her head. Also in this episode, Sigsbee pumps Maureen for information on the kids, which seems to be a regular thing. Maureen says that Shaw trusts her, so they all do. She says they all think they're smart, but they all follow her lead. Then Maureen warns Sigsbee to keep an eye on Luke because he's checking on their security measures a lot and taking note of things. But Stackhouse dismisses this and says they all check security, but none of them actually test it. They really underestimate these kids. Stackhouse says he's got real problems with the Snatch team, saying, quote, "Opal turned a blank. I'm still waiting on answers from Emerald. We might have to scramble this month," unquote. The usage of the terms opal and emerald must be code for something, and it's unclear what this means at this point. Sigsbee says that a keyhole is about to open, but before heading out of the office, she warns Maureen to watch out for Avery, because his TP is very strong, so she should keep her distance, because he might be able to read her mind even if she's guarded. How is it that they guard themselves about having their minds read? The show hasn't given us an answer on that yet. Indeed, Avery's TP is extremely powerful. He knows what Shaw's thinking after she's visited the dream box, and she tells them she saw the dots, and that the box is the worst thing they do to them there. According to Shaw, Hendricks says you can give yourself an embolism if you try to fight it, and it feels like a nail is being hammered into your forehead. Then an intense humming noise occurs and moves through the hallways toward them. Avery, in particular, is most drawn to it, and probably experiences it the most because his powers are the most intense. Shaw tells Luke that they all feel it sometimes, and it's definitely something coming from back half. Based on the events of this episode, I would say that they feel this hum at this point in time because the keyhole has just opened. But what does this keyhole term mean? It's finally coming into focus, and in this episode it's connected to the Institute's apparent assassination of a senator. Meeting in the hallway, Hendricks tells Sigsbee that the Ramsey keyhole is about to open. He's happy because he thinks Sigsbee is going to join him for this event, saying it's been a while. You see, these people are perversely happy about killing a senator using innocent children on whom they're experimenting. Again, these people are sociopaths. It's been unclear what the keyhole term has meant thus far, but based on this episode, it seems to represent a short window of time in which they have the opportunity to target someone for assassination and accomplish this feat by harnessing the psychic powers of the children. Later in the episode, Tim goes to check on Annie, who's playing hopscotch, and tells him that the Dalai Lama showed her that because it keeps them from reading your mind. She may sound unhinged here, but as always, there's a kernel of truth. We know that telepathy is actually going on not far from here at the Institute. Annie asks Tim if the hum woke him as it did to her, but he didn't hear it. She seems to have telepathic powers, which is probably why she heard it and Tim did not, but she attributes it to the time Tim was born, the 80s. Referencing the popular real-life conspiracy theory about chemtrails, Annie says that Tim can't hear the hum because, quote, in the 60s they start adding isotopes to jet fuel, aluminum dioxide. They've been seeding the country like crop dusters ever since. It affects hormone growth, especially in infants, unquote. Then she tells Tim that the hum is getting worse, and she never felt it so strong before. And she clutches her head as if realizing something, saying, quote, they killed him, the bastards. Pilot error. They made the pilot read the numbers wrong. It's telepathy. They project it, unquote. Annie is referring to Senator Ramsey, as referenced by Sigsbee, saying the Ramsey keyhole is about to open. This becomes clear by the end of the episode. Annie warns Luke, quote, you have to be careful. You can't just talk about it, unquote. Meaning the Ramsey situation and the Institute's involvement. But Tim can't comprehend what she's talking about, because he doesn't have the same amount of knowledge that we have as viewers. Annie also warns Tim to stay away from Route 10 where the Institute is, which he does figure out later. She rambles a bit crazily but points out they thought Copernicus was crazy, and indeed he was not. Tim asks her if she ever talked to a doctor because a doctor put his mom on medication that helped her, and they might have better stuff out now that could help Annie. But notably, Annie tells him that she never touches drugs or alcohol, even remembering the exact date of her last drink in 2003. This becomes significant later in the episode. Clearly, Annie doesn't want to be in an impaired state of which others could take advantage. Annie's final warning to Tim is, quote, keep your eyes open, all of them, unquote, pointing to her forehead, which represents the third eye of enlightenment, something that has yet to be opened for Tim. Unfortunately, Tim doesn't listen to what Annie said about keeping quiet and not just talking openly to random people. Because later at a bar, the Institute's reporter plant, Kate, approaches him and chats him up, and then he reveals too much to her, unwittingly. While they're sitting there, to Tim's shock, he sees a report on the news about a plane crash that says Senator Ramsey feared dead. So there you have it. The Institute is using the psychic kids to assassinate people, and the Ramsey keyhole was a specific window of time when they could make that happen. Who knows how many others have been assassinated, or what else they can orchestrate by harnessing the kids' powers. In prior episodes, Sigsbee referenced a lot of keyholes coming up, many targets, which would require more kids. Tim asks Kate if she knows anything about the research place on Route 10, and says he heard they do experiments on mind control and telepathy. Kate plays it off and says most people say the place is connected to aliens, then asks who told him mind control. And Tim spills the beans. He tells Kate that Annie said the Institute was going to use mind control to crash a plane and make it look like pilot error. This effectively seals Annie's fate. They have to shut her up now. Before Kate exits, undoubtedly to take care of that, she tells Tim that the Institute is just an old Cold War pork project that's not even doing research anymore, trying to throw him off the scent. By the end of the episode, Tim finds Annie's dead body next to an empty bottle of liquor and a lot of pills, which is highly suspicious, because Annie specifically told him that she doesn't take any drugs and hasn't drunk alcohol in over 20 years. Obviously, Kate killed Annie to shut her up on behalf of the Institute, just like she killed Michelle in episode 1. Now getting back to Sigsbee and Hendricks in the hallway, she warns him to be careful with Avery. She says no rough stuff and minimal procedures, and I think this is because strong emotions seem to trigger their psychic abilities a great deal, which could be used against their overlords here before they can move those kids to the back half and curb that threat. Hendricks lies that she's right about Luke, and his scores are too low to work with him on the PC, aka precognition, track, but she looks like she doesn't believe him and leaves. She goes to look at surveillance footage and sees Hendricks and Stackhouse talking about Luke, but then the audio on the feed cuts out, which Stackhouse did on purpose. And as we saw in episode 2, Stackhouse and Hendricks are secretly working together to try to cultivate PC abilities in Luke and sell him to the highest bidder. Suspicious, Sigsbee calls the mystery man with whom she and Stackhouse had been on the phone in episode 2, the man who's in a position of authority over them. She apologizes for bothering him late at night, telling him that tonight's operation, meaning the Ramsey keyhole, went smoothly. He chuckles and calls this an unexpected pleasure then, with a weird vibe. Then she starts cutting into her finger with a staple remover while talking to him. More self-harm behavior, like when she burned herself in episode 1, suggesting a possible history of trauma, perhaps at the hands of this man in particular? Maybe talking to him is a trigger that's leading her to cut herself. Just a thought. Sigsbee tells the man that she has a possible security risk, Stackhouse, but he's too careful, so she has no evidence to corroborate her suspicion. As a result, the man rejects her accusation as gossip and says he doesn't believe Stackhouse's gossip about her either. So he's been talking about her behind her back as well. And once again, we get a shot of the photos in which he's shaking hands with President Reagan and a man who appears to be a young George W. Bush, reminding us how powerful he seems to be in that he, and the Institute by association, has connections to the U.S. government at its highest levels. Notably, the new kid Avery is a huge asset against the adults here. He tells Luke that Maureen is trying to stay away from him and she's got a secret. She's sad and she hates it here like they do. But he says they can't trust her because she gives Sigsbee intel on what they talk about, even though she hates doing that. And he says he knows her big secret. The scene cuts there, so we don't find out what that secret is yet, at least not explicitly. Later, in the yard, the kids discuss what they know about the Institute's security measures. They're the most lax out there, no mics or motion sensors, but there isn't space to go under the fence there. Luke quotes The Rock saying, quote, "The opportunity for defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy," unquote. So they're looking for weak spots and discussing when the security patrols likely have a shift change. Meanwhile, Avery is able to channel himself into a security patrol dog's mind and see through his eyes heading toward the back half area. He explains that dogs don't protect their thoughts. They just let you ride with them, as he puts it. Through the dog's eyes, Avery sees another fence on the back half side near an old playground, a spot where they could probably dig under it. He doesn't see any kids there, and it seems deserted. So they clearly don't let those kids go out there to have that kind of freedom as they do in the front half. Then Avery gets nervous and says, "I don't want to go back there," instinctively uneasy about the back half. At that point, Shaw is brought out, having just been in the dream box and in bad shape. She says she connected to the hum and paraphrases something that Nikki said about Iris when she was sent to the back half. He had said, quote, "We will see her no more," unquote, a phrase that people have traditionally said as part of funerals. Now Shaw says, "You will see me no more," meaning that she will now be sent to the back half, and instinctively, they all know that's bad news. Even Shaw, the optimist, feels that sense of dread. And as I said in my previous deep dive, I think that's a hint that they all have the potential for precognition. By the end of the episode, the Institute throws Shaw a graduation party, and Sigsbee tells her, quote, "You're ready to serve your country. No one will know your sacrifice, not even you, but you're going home," unquote. Of course, I don't believe they're ever sending these kids home, so that's a lie. But she's not lying when she says that Kalisha will never know her sacrifice. I don't think most of these kids will ever understand what they're even being used to do, using their powers to assassinate people. Also, the use of the phrase "serve your country" has a military connotation and strengthens my theory that the Institute is a governmental black op, possibly through the CIA. Luke tells the others that they need to see what's in the back half, and that maybe Shaw can get into that playground that Avery saw through the dog's eyes, perhaps thinking she could escape under the fence there. They all join hands and close their eyes, probably trying to pool their collective powers to amplify their psychic impact, which would have likely worked, and they really should have tried this sooner. A telltale sign that this could be effective is that when Sigsbee notices, she breaks it up, rushing Shaw out of there. When Nikki tries to fight them for grabbing Shaw, Tony shocks him with his cattle prod and they drag her away as she cries hysterically. More abuse of these kids that keeps intensifying episode by episode. Tony takes her to the back half, and Avery follows her by riding along with her in her mind, but then he loses track of her. Another significant moment during that graduation party is when Luke approaches Maureen, armed with the knowledge that Avery had given him via his TP. He tells her, "You're the best. You're going to end up running this place." She tries to brush him off, but he continues, "You hate these graduations, don't you? It's not too late, Maureen." She's not receptive to him yet, but he knows now that she hates this place, so she's definitely their best shot at an ally among the staff. Incidentally, Avery is unable to get a read on Sigsbee. She has the ability to prevent even him from reading her mind. I'm guessing she has TP, which could be how the kids can't get away with lying here. At least one person on staff probably has TP. Remember, George had warned Luke to tell them when he sees the dots because they know when people lie. Elsewhere in the episode, Wendy questions Tim on why he doesn't mind that Drew is getting all the credit for saving the man who was shot at the convenience store in episode 2. Tim responds that he spent a long time thinking that he needed to involve himself in everything and try to fix what was broken, but now he doesn't want to do that anymore. Yet, Wendy points out that Tim still ran toward gunfire without a gun at the convenience store, and he admits that he still has that old habit. This foreshadows the heroic role that I'm sure he'll play in confronting the Institute to save the kids in the end. So that was my breakdown on episode 3 of the Institute. The monstrous activities of this place are starting to come into focus, as it has become clear that they're harnessing the powers of the children to assassinate people like Senator Ramsey. But, with the addition of Avery and his intense TP powers, along with Luke's genius mind, the kids have a fighting chance now. Tim will surely be a huge asset now as well, since Annie's death will put him on the trail to investigate the Institute. Now, let me know your thoughts and theories down in the comments, and until next time, keep on deep diving, and let's see what we can uncover together.